You are unknowingly crushing the cure to your deepest physical suffering beneath your shoes every single time you walk out your front door. For over a century, a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical empire has executed a flawless, terrifying psychological campaign to convince you that true medicine only comes from sterile laboratories, while simultaneously programming you to poison, pull, and destroy the profound botanical titans growing wildly in your own backyard. They labeled them as nuisances, categorizing them as weeds to be eradicated with toxic chemicals, completely erasing the historical truth that these very plants were the foundational pillars of the ancient apothecaries. These so-called weeds possess a raw, untamed biochemical power that aggressively targets the root causes of modern disease, rivaling and often surpassing the synthetic, side-effect-laden pills modern doctors blindly prescribe. Welcome to Lone Oak Remedies, where we rip away the sterile, synthetic veil of modern medicine and descend into the forgotten, shadowed catacombs of history to reclaim the divine, stolen alchemy of our ancestors. Today, we are exposing the ultimate medical cover-up, revealing 7 aggressive, untamed backyard weeds that hold the absolute, documented power to heal your broken biology from the ground up. Our journey into this suppressed botanical arsenal begins with a plant that the modern homeowner spends millions of dollars a year trying to destroy with chemical herbicides, entirely blind to the fact that they are poisoning the ultimate liver regenerator. We casually dismiss it as the dandelion, but to the ancient physicians and biblical healers, it was an absolutely indispensable biological filter. Modern diets, saturated with artificial preservatives and heavy metals, leave the human liver chronically congested, exhausted, and suffocating under a toxic load. When modern medicine encounters a failing liver or severe fluid retention, it prescribes aggressive synthetic diuretics that ruthlessly strip the body of life-saving potassium, leading to terrifying heart palpitations and muscular paralysis. But the ancient dandelion possesses a brilliant, divine biological intelligence. Its deep, unyielding taproot is heavily saturated with a bitter compound called taraxacin. When brewed into a dark, earthy decoction, this raw bitterness violently triggers the vagus nerve, commanding the liver to instantly dump a massive wave of purifying bile. It aggressively flushes stagnant toxins, heavy metals, and hardened cholesterol from the hepatic ducts, acting as an internal biological power wash. Furthermore, its leaves act as a profound, potassium-sparing diuretic, flushing excess, edema-causing fluids from the tissues while simultaneously replacing the exact trace minerals the body needs to maintain a perfect electrical charge. It is a complete, closed-loop healing system, a golden crown of medicine that fiercely refuses to stop growing, no matter how hard the modern world tries to kill it. Moving from the golden blooms of the open grass to the trodden, compacted dirt pathways of your yard, we encounter a low-growing, broad-leafed titan that ancient Roman legions and indigenous warriors considered their primary field medic. Broadleaf Plantain, completely unrelated to the banana-like fruit, was historically known as the healing blade and the master drawer of poisons. In an era where a simple puncture wound or an infected insect bite could result in a rapid, agonizing death from sepsis, the ancients did not have synthetic antibiotics. They relied on the raw, drawing power of the crushed plantain leaf. This incredibly resilient weed contains overwhelming, terrifyingly high concentrations of aucubin, a profound antimicrobial agent, and allantoin, a biochemical catalyst that aggressively commands human cellular replication. When a fresh plantain leaf is chewed or crushed and applied directly to a festering wound, a spider bite, or a severe sting, it acts as an instantaneous biological vacuum. The powerful astringent compounds forcefully draw the venom, microscopic debris, and localized infection out of the surrounding tissue, while the allantoin immediately begins knitting the torn flesh back together. It forms a highly breathable, living bandage that stops bleeding, neutralizes pain in seconds, and accelerates deep tissue regeneration at a speed that renders modern chemical ointments utterly obsolete. It is the Earth's instantaneous first aid kit, patiently waiting to be remembered in the cracks of your driveway. As we look closer at the scorching, sun-baked concrete edges where almost no life can survive, we find a creeping, succulent weed that defies the brutal heat, purslane. Modern cardiologists constantly preach the absolute necessity of omega-3 fatty acids to prevent the catastrophic, silent inflammation that tears apart human blood vessels, leading to lethal heart attacks and strokes. They prescribe highly processed, often rancid fish oil capsules, completely ignoring that the ultimate cardiovascular shield is growing in the dirt. Purslane contains the highest recorded levels of omega-3 fatty acids of any leafy green plant on the face of the earth. But its biological superiority does not stop there. The ancients consumed this crisp, slightly tart weed because it was also heavily saturated with raw melatonin, a hormone that modern science now recognizes as one of the most violent, aggressive antioxidants in existence. When you consume raw, wild purslane, you are not just eating a plant, you are ingesting a masterclass in vascular defense. The heavy omega-3s instantly lubricate the arterial walls, dissolving the hardened plaques of modern, oxidized diets, while the massive flood of melatonin hunts down and neutralizes the free radicals that cause premature cellular aging. It is a profound, heart-protecting, brain-regenerating superfood that has been tragically reclassified as a worthless pest, hiding a divine biological code right under your feet. Shifting our gaze from the creeping vines of the earth to the towering, velvet-leafed sentinels that stand proudly in the forgotten, undisturbed corners of our fields, we encounter a botanical giant known to the ancients as the fiery torch, or mullein. In our modern age, humanity is collectively suffocating. Our respiratory systems are under constant, relentless siege from environmental pollutants, microscopic airborne toxins, and a rise in chronic inflammatory lung conditions. When faced with severe bronchial spasms or deep, rattling chest congestion, modern medicine aggressively pushes synthetic inhalers and heavy steroids that artificially force the airways open, often causing long-term damage to the delicate lung tissues. But the ancient healers and dessert prophets possessed the profound knowledge of the mullein stalk. This towering weed, with its soft, deeply fuzzy leaves, is a master of the respiratory matrix. It is terrifyingly dense with highly complex saponins, biochemical compounds that act as a violent, targeted solvent within the human lung. When the thick leaves of the mullein are steeped into a hot, dark infusion, these compounds do not merely suppress a cough like a chemical syrup. They aggressively break down and liquefy the hardened, suffocating mucus trapped deep within the microscopic alveoli. Furthermore, the thick, mucilaginous properties of the plant actively coat the raw, inflamed, and micro-torn tissues of the throat and bronchial tubes, acting as a soothing, biological liquid bandage. It is the immediate, aggressive restoration of the human breath, a forgotten respiratory miracle that literally commands the lungs to open, clearing the heavy shadows of disease from the chest. Venturing further into the damp, shadowed edges of the property line, where the wild boundary meets the manicured lawn, we confront a plant that fiercely demands respect, armed with thousands of microscopic, venom-filled needles, the stinging nettle. Today, homeowners spend fortunes on heavy protective gloves and toxic herbicides to violently eradicate this weed from their sight, terrified of its stinging bite. Yet, this aggressive defense mechanism guards one of the most profound, blood-building nutritional powerhouses on the face of the earth. Ancient Roman soldiers, marching into the freezing, brutal climates of northern Europe, would intentionally flog their own limbs with raw nettle branches. This terrifying practice, known as urtication, triggered a massive rush of blood to the surface and aggressively obliterated the crippling, deep tissue agony of severe arthritis and joint deterioration. Today, millions are paralyzed by systemic joint pain, consuming synthetic anti-inflammatories that ruthlessly shred the stomach lining and tax the liver. The ancient physicians knew that when nettle is crushed, dried, or briefly boiled, instantly neutralizing its sting, it becomes a divine elixir of mobility. Nettle is overwhelmingly rich in highly bioavailable iron, magnesium, and a profound, natural histamine-blocking complex. When consumed as a dark, earthy tonic, it actively hunts down and violently flushes uric acid crystals from the joints, the exact, razor-sharp microscopic shards that cause the agonizing, stabbing pain of gout and chronic arthritis. It literally rebuilds the blood, driving heavy, oxygen-rich nutrition into the deepest, most starved tissues of the body, turning a feared, aggressive weed into the ultimate biological restorer of human movement. Stepping away from the stinging defenses of the nettle, we wade into the tangled, overgrown brush to encounter a plant utterly despised for its aggressive, clinging nature, the burdock. You know it by the frustrating, hook-covered burrs that latch onto your clothing and your pets, a brilliant evolutionary design meant to spread its seeds across vast distances. But beneath the surface of the earth lies a massive, dark taproot that the ancient apothecaries revered as the ultimate blood purifier. Today, millions suffer from the agonizing, disfiguring reality of severe eczema, psoriasis, and chronic cystic acne. Modern dermatology responds by pushing highly toxic, synthetic steroid creams that merely suppress the immune system and thin the skin, driving the internal toxicity deeper into the organs. The ancient healers understood that the skin is not just a surface, it is an emergency exit for a toxified bloodstream. When the heavy, fibrous root of the wild burdock is unearthed and slowly decocted into a dark, earthy brew, it acts as a ruthless internal filtration system. Burdock is heavily saturated with deep, complex inulin and powerful polyacetylenes that aggressively bind to heavy metals, synthetic chemicals, and metabolic waste circulating in the blood. It violently forces the liver and kidneys to rapidly filter and expel these poisons through the digestive tract and urinary system, completely bypassing the skin. It does not just soothe a rash, it systematically cleanses the human blood matrix, restoring a flawless, vibrant exterior by permanently eradicating the toxic internal rot that modern steroids only pretend to heal. Finally, as we reach the deepest, most undisturbed corners of the wild yard, we find a delicate, sprawling weed that physically hooks onto everything it touches, weaving a vast, sticky net across the ground. Cleavers, historically known as the sticky weed. In our modern, sedentary world, we are dying from a terrifying internal stagnation. The human lymphatic system, the crucial network responsible for flushing cellular sewage and dead pathogens out of the body, has no central pump. When we stop moving, our lymph fluid turns into a toxic, stagnant swamp, leading to chronically swollen glands, profound cellular fatigue, and a collapsed immune system. Modern medicine largely ignores this hidden network until it becomes catastrophically diseased. But the ancient herbalists recognized cleavers as the master key to the body's internal drainage system. When this sticky, vibrant green weed is gathered fresh and cold infused into pure water, it releases a massive wave of profound, lymphatic stimulating coumarins. The moment this crisp liquid enters the human body, it acts as an aggressive, biological pump. It violently stimulates the lymphatic vessels, commanding them to contract and forcefully push the thick, stagnant cellular sewage out of the deep tissues and into the bloodstream for immediate elimination. It aggressively dissolves hardened lymphatic cysts, drains swollen nodes, and literally washes the microscopic debris out of your exhausted cells. It is the ultimate internal reset, a humble, clinging weed that physically unclogs the microscopic rivers of life within you. These 7 backyard weeds are not nuisances, they are not pests, and they are certainly not the enemy. They are the stolen, suppressed architectural blueprints of divine human health, growing relentlessly from the earth to offer you immediate, profound salvation from the synthetic chains of the modern pharmaceutical empire. The medical industry has spent billions of dollars to convince you that the soil is dirty and their laboratories are clean, manipulating you into poisoning your own land while paying exorbitant prices for pills that only mask your slow decay. But the ancient, unyielding biology of the earth cannot be erased. The absolute power to regenerate your liver, rebuild your blood, purify your respiratory tract, and seal your wounds is waiting right outside your door, demanding to be recognized. It is time to stop fearing the wild. It is time to radically reject the fragile, synthetic illusions of modern medicine and reclaim the fierce, ancestral alchemy that is your birthright. If you feel the undeniable, desperate pull to break free from the cycle of chronic illness, to remember the buried historical heritage of true healing, and to forge an unbreakable physical vessel, you must take action. Join our fiercely growing, awakened community. Subscribe to Lone Oak Remedies right now, and together, let us relentlessly uncover the ancient path to a body rebuilt, a mind sharpened, and a spirit completely and eternally freed from the bondage of modern disease.